metal documentary. Someone needs to make the definitive hair metal. I saw one that was about
There's
Guns
a
N'
couple of
Roses.
them. There's a couple of them.
I saw one that was about how it was basically a premise that Guns N' Roses like stole a lot of their. They marketed it well and took it nationwide, but there was a lot of bands in LA that were doing what they were doing even purer and better. Yeah,
Usually
that's
that's the case.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the Audible, just like everyone who's taken the Audible.
We just do what we do, and that's how we do it, right?
Doing it and
Before
doing it right.
I was trying to teach Nick Ferguson last night about Aldo Nova
Oh yeah.
because before Bon Jovi there was Aldo Nova.
Right.
So
Right.
all
Right.
right,
Right.
we got the chat room lining up. I don't think they want to hear about Aldo Nova. Maybe
No.
they do.
Speaking of New Jersey, an Action Park documentary is coming out. Class Action Park. If it doesn't mean anything to you, even better.
Okay.
File it away, Cecil.
Okay. I'll file it away. I'll do that, and I'll turn down my ring light. It was a little hot there. Okay. All right. 3, 2, and 1. Training camp doesn't stop, at least for now. And of course, the news coming out of training camp doesn't stop. And that's why we are here for you. It is the Audible, Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom, and talking about training camp 2020. We brought up lots of things yesterday's show. Thanks to everyone for listening to the Audible. I'm going to take that out and post. But anyway, today we are going back to the training camp news. And I want to talk about Chase Edmonds and Kenyon Drake. Where Cliff Kingsbury saying that Chase Edmonds could be a starter in this league, which is true. He's always had that talent and ability. And I think it was either the Senior Bowl or the Shrine Game. My memory is fuzzy, but I believe it was the Senior Bowl where I saw Chase Fordham. Of course, Chase Edmonds, out of Fordham. Kenyon Drake now saying, Cliff Kingsbury saying, he's hard to tackle one-on-one in space. So that's an area we'd like to get him more involved in, meaning the passing game. So lots of good stuff from this Cardinals rushing attack with Drake being the lead guy.
Yeah, the question here is, Cease, if you had Drake, and it's interesting, the emotional memory of having a player, because last year, if you had Kenyon Drake, as long as you started him in week 15 and 16, he helped you win a title. A lot of people will remember that. And you want to go back to the well. Late first, early second round, maybe even in the mid-second round, Drake is there. But while he was marauding through defenses last year, Chase Edmonds didn't really play a role. Now, one way you can look at this is Edmonds had that hamstring injury that cut him down just as he was breaking out, and maybe he wasn't fully healthy. Stick with the hot hand. Or you can say they can talk up Edmonds as much as they want, but they showed us last year that if Drake is healthy, Drake's going to be the guy, and they only have him on a 1-year transition tag deal, so there's no incentive for them to save him or pace their usage of him. But I would generally agree with the perspective that Edmonds is good, so you have two paths to value for Edmonds now as creeping up the board. Maybe a few weeks ago, CC would have been a 12th, 13th round pick. Now pieces like this are moving him up around the 10th round. You have the Drake handcuff. And if you don't believe in Drake, you should be taking Edmonds. This is another article I always want to write but never do. See, it's kind of like the personality test, right?
Right.
If you feel this way, you should be doing this. If you say, I would never take Kenyon Drake in the top 20 picks, he's never held up for a whole season as a lead back. We have no idea if he can do that. Then you should be taking Chase Edmonds. But maybe Edmonds can get worked into this offense. And see, so we bring this up every time we talk about the Arizona backfield. What's fun about the Arizona backfield is they've got three guys who can do everything. They've got Drake, Edmonds, and Eno Benjamin. Let's not forget him. That can be every down backs and play the role in the offense that we want for fantasy football. So it's more of a reminder that Edmonds is still there. And going back over Drake and his value and how if Edmonds, even if he gets 6, 8, 10 touches a game, that means Drake can't hit the ceiling he hit last year.
What's funny about Eno Benjamin is before the draft, I talked to Herman Edwards a couple of times, and it was usually about Brandon Ayuk, Bloom.
Yeah.
But when he brought up Eno Benjamin, do you know who he compared him to? Kenyon Drake.
Yeah.
So I was like, now they're on the same team. So it's kind of like college recruiting programs, right? Cliff
Sure.
Kingsbury, a college coach. So when you're a college recruiter, you bring in similar type of prospects to do what you want to do. The Cardinals have now done that with their backup running back situation. So there you go. That's something to be mindful of today. Also, be mindful of what Robert's talking about, the Antonio Gibson hype on Twitter today. Now, listen, I'll be the first guy to be like, I love Antonio Gibson. I thought he was like Jalen Samuels, who I love, who the Steelers still don't use the right way and may not even make the team. Antonio Gibson, I love his skill set, loved him at the Senior Bowl, and don't really like the Washington got him because of their clustered backfield. A little bit less clustered now, Bloom, but there's Gibson hype always because he's so versatile and so good. But there's also hype about Bryce Love, who could be that number 2 back. And we have to remember and go back to his Stanford days. When he followed up Christian McCaffrey, he looked pretty much like Christian McCaffrey. Now, he's not Christian McCaffrey. He's not that guy. He's not that player. He won't be that player in the NFL. But then he shredded his knee. And it basically took him 2 years to get to this point. So we're kind of waiting and wondering, can he be that same explosive player? Had he stayed healthy that second year after Christian McCaffrey, we're talking about a potential first-round pick. So Bryce Love with that red shirt year last year for Washington, now perhaps number 2 behind Adrian Peterson, which means he could be number 1.
So Ron Rivera. Is Ron Rivera really some P. Sunshine type when it comes to talking about his players? I don't think so.
No.
Because when he says he's a multi-dimensional guy, at Stanford we didn't see a lot of routes and pass catching, but he's very capable, and we're getting to see that. This is a guy who could be an every down back for you. He's an explosive, dynamic player. That's what Rivera said about Bryce Love. That's not insignificant. And even though it was basically the previous regime, Washington spent a 4th-round pick on Bryce Love last year, even though they knew they weren't going to get anything out of him. So that tells you they valued him pretty highly. Of course, they spent an early 3rd-round pick on Antonio Gibson as a luxury pick. Tells you they valued him highly, and it's this regime. I'm not really sure how to unpack this because Adrian Peterson's going to get some touches, right? It's just Adrian Peterson's like that beast of burden at this point, or Peyton Barber for that matter. Just absorb some punishment, run the plays, land the body blows. But then you have Antonio Gibson. What's exciting about Antonio Gibson is Scott Turner is willing to do some different things with him. They were talking about the big tweet that got a lot of excitement this morning was a tweet about a misdirection play that the ball ended up in Antonio Gibson's hands. Still, you wonder how volume is going to come to him. Love could get enough volume to show what he can do, but then if Love is that explosive player that we saw a few years ago at Stanford, does that just sweep Peterson aside? I don't know. And then we have the factor of the Washington offensive line. Are they going to be creating value for anybody? So it's also possible, we hear buzz that because after Terry McLaurin and maybe Steven Sims, there's not much going on. Dontrell Inman is in line to start for this team week 1 at outside wide receiver. Maybe the running backs take up a lot of the slack in the passing game. More questions than answers for the Washington football team, but certainly there's some players we're going to be watching closely that will have an opportunity to settle this backfield in their favor. If the coaches are open to that, I suspect they might not be.
I suspect that we might be still wondering what Bryce Love can do at the end of all this. But it's interesting. It's worth noting, and it's definitely worth keeping track of as we continue on through the NFL. And springy isn't a word that we normally use. We might have never used it on this show before from 2006 till now, but springy is the way that Will McFadden of AtlantaFalcons.com described Todd Gurley looking springy when carrying the ball during practice in training camp. We all know it's about windows, and early on that window for Gurley is pretty good. So there might be a Gurley resurgence, a Gurley renaissance bloom that you can take advantage of and then flip him before the clock strikes midnight.
Yeah, this is what we've been talking about. And the good news is here, good buzz on Chris Lindstrom, first round pick last year. Should be a starting guard that could upgrade the Atlanta offensive line. Caleb McGarry, if he's healthy, another first-round pick could upgrade that offensive line. And this team was a better team, a more competitive team last year. So Gurley at this point is more like a blunt force downhill runner that you're going to use to harvest value out of well-executed running plays to set things up. in the passing game and otherwise get the game script that you want. Remember, this defense improved a lot whenever they started having Jeff Ulbrich and Raheem Morris calling the plays on defense. It's the schedule. It's all about the schedule. And this year more than ever, that hot start. You want that hot start. So Gurley, I wouldn't take him in the third. I might not even take him in the fourth. You might get him in the fifth. And still, you're passing on wide receivers that it hurts to pass on, Cease, right? Like Terry McLaurin or DJ Chark. How can I pass on these guys?
I don't want to pass on McLaurin.
No. And DJ Chark is making a play every day, well, more than a play every day in practice. However, not that you needed that to go after Chark, but Gurley is going to open up with Seattle. He's going to get Dallas. Then I think there's a game against Chicago. But then you're going to get Green Bay. Then you're going to get the Panthers. I know loyal listeners to our show will say, I know, I've heard this already. But 4 out of those 5 games are against weak run defenses. Dallas just lost Gerald McCoy. Seattle, they didn't really do anything to upgrade their run defense in the offseason. Green Bay didn't do anything to upgrade their run defense. Carolina is completely rebuilding their defense. So Gurley can just have lots of 20 for 85 and a touchdown or 2 kind of games as long as Atlanta is competing, and they should be able to. Then you flip him because that knee is not going to feel better as the season goes on. We don't know if he's going to hold up. And we don't have much clarity who's behind him. That's the other thing. You could say, well, draft his handcuff, and then if Gurley craps out, you have his handcuff. Well, is it Brian Hill? He's got some buzz. Quadri Olison, a la Benny Snell, talking about his body being reshaped. Ito Smith is back. So that doesn't really help us. The plan here is if Gurley is a value, take him. Ride him for that first month in the good matchups, and then trade him to somebody who sees the visions of Gurley. Even just a few years ago, Cease, he was the most valuable player in fantasy football, like Joe says. Things change pretty quickly around here.
They do, and just yesterday, and it's funny how the same article, you can get so many like little stories out of it, microblogging. Right. And on our newswire, there were 2 stories about Quadri Olison. I made one invisible because I was like, this is the same story from the same article. But I wrote about Quadri Olison yesterday and Ito Smith yesterday. To me, it's just going to be a committee because Smith is a straight line speed guy. Olison's got the nose for the end zone. If something happens to Gurley, I think they use both, so much so that it probably won't be worth investing in from a fantasy lens unless one of those guys emerges. But I don't see one of them emerging if Smith and Olison play like they can play in the absence of Gurley.
It's true. And you have Ito Smith on passing downs, maybe in the hurry-up offense. Olison, I think, is interesting because he's the short yardage back, and he's the guy they drafted after they brought back Dirk Cutter. He's a Dirk Cutter type. Brian Hill has done pretty well for himself after not making it with his first team. And last year when he got the opportunity, he was better when he was mixed in behind Devontae Freeman than when he replaced Devontae Freeman. But you're right. This is no clarity here, which doesn't mean there's uncertainty. You can take advantage of it because it's cheap. It means that if the starter goes down, we probably won't have clarity as who we want to pick up, who we want to play. And this is a situation where Atlanta, at least because they're happy with what they have, probably won't make a move, but it doesn't signify that there's a handcuff to Gurley here.
Well, we have clarity when it comes to your new favorite place to play fantasy football for real money. It's Underdog Fantasy. With Underdog, all you need to do is the fun part, draft. Forget about the injuries, the trades, the waivers, setting lineups. Just set it and forget it and wait for the winnings to come in. This year, they have a $1 million tournament. That's right. Just draft the best team and you have a shot at $1 million in prizes. Sign up for Underdog today and enter the Best Ball Mania for a chance at $1 million in prizes by going to UnderdogFantasy.com. That's UnderdogFantasy.com or searching for Underdog Fantasy in your app store. Be sure to enter the code FBG after you make your first deposit. UnderdogFantasy.com. Okay, how about Tua Tagovailoa being very accurate in camp? Everything's theater, Bloom. And that's a large conversation. Actually, we could do how many different podcasts could we do on that subject? Everything is theater. So the theater of Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua Tagovailoa, Tua's looking like everything he's supposed to be in Dolphins camp. So are we looking at a Russell Wilson type of situation when he just came in? He's like competing with Matt Flynn, and then week 3 of the preseason, he's starting. Is that what we're looking at with Tua?
Possibly. They're in a good spot. Let's just take a moment to bask in what Miami has done, because they totally tore down their roster last year. Completely let the forest fire go through and say, what, if anything, is there that we can build from? And there wasn't a lot. A lot of those picks, these guys like Charles Harris, there's not much there. But they still take Ryan Fitzpatrick out of free agency. Oh, you needed to tank for Tua. Come on, now you're going to win some games, and that's not good. They did, actually, including the game that staggered the Death Star, so it was blown up by the Titans. And yet they still have Tua fall to them at number 5. And see, this is how far it's come. When the Dolphins are cutting players, other teams are claiming them. Huh?
Right.
Isn't that wild?
Mm-hmm.
Last year, anybody who got released, the Dolphins were going to claim them, right? Like anyone. You're just like, oh, let's see. It's probably better than what we have. And now they're releasing players, and other teams are claiming them. And now they have this decision with Tagovailoa. And the good news is, physically, he's ready to play. And mentally, he's probably ready to play. But week 1 against New England, even with the total new linebacker core, maybe not how you want to introduce Tua to the NFL. Week 2 against Buffalo, again, probably not how you want to introduce Tua to the NFL, especially with the Miami offensive line that's under construction. So they can take their time. And in the meantime, 2 quarterback superflex leagues, Ryan Fitzpatrick's free because everybody is expecting the page to be turned at any time. So he was a fantasy quarterback 1, top 5, top 8 option in the second half of the year. Look, Miami's pass offense had over 2,300 yards in the second half of the year. That's a 4,600-yard pass offense. And Devontae Parker's a 6th-round pick. Mike Gesicki, 10th, 11th-round pick. Preston Williams, who's practicing, by the way, 12th-round pick. Hearns and Wilson opted out. So this is a narrow target tree here in a good passing game. When Tagovailoa takes over, it's not going to be a massive drop-off. Maybe there's fewer YOLO throws. Did I say that right, Cecil? Is that how the kids say it? YOLO?
Why are you asking me? I'm older than you.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. You're on the radio.
Get off my lawn.
Fans, adoring fans. I'm sure there's some of them that are young. Anyway, my point is Fitzpatrick, maybe it hurts Parker a little bit when they make the transition, because Fitzpatrick will take those chances where Parker can win on those contested balls against Stephon Gilmore. But in week 1, we're going to get that at least. Tagovailoa might be better playing within structure. Maybe that's more Gesicki with the matchups that he gets. Bottom line here, and maybe Matt Breida, by the way, that's a whole other story with Miami. Matt Breida hinting at a big role as a receiving back in this offense. Maybe even Cameron Wolf says, ESPN, maybe even playing some receiver. So if you like Matt Breida, that's a reason to look at him. I think Miami's a much more fascinating pass offense than they're giving credit for in fantasy drafts. And that includes when Tagovailoa becomes a starter, which I think you're right, Cease. Week 3, week 4, week 5 is probably what we're looking at.
Yeah, Cam reporting what Breida is in the slot.
Yeah, well, just they want to get him involved.
Yeah. So there you go. And love Brian Flores, man. Absolutely love that mindset. Just him as a coach. Bright upside for that team. Keep Tua healthy. Look at what they've done defensively. Look at what they did in free agency. The Beagle injury, much of anything for them?
They need pass rush.
They need pass rushers, yeah.
They just, again, it hasn't really worked out. So absolutely, this defense. So the interesting thing to watch with the defense is best pair of outside corners in the league, right? End of conversation. It's Howard and Byron Jones. It's one of the things they did. They also at linebacker they bring in Kyle Van Noy. They also have Landon Roberts there, another guy that has that New England connection to Brian Flores. Jerome Baker, who's been working out, but where's the pass rush going to come from? Christian Wilkins, the first-round pick last year. Shaq Lawson, who they signed, can he stay healthy? Emmanuel Ogbah. So, yeah, that's a problem. Beagle, certainly, he's no T.J. Watt, Cease, but that's hard to live up to. The Wisconsin edge rushers. Definitely something that those corners are going to have to keep the lockdown on the outside receivers to help the defense hang on.
We wrap up today's Audible training camp news blast with a discussion of, Brent bringing up Taysom Hill listed as a tight end on ESPN. Sneaky fantasy stash.
Yeah. 6 touchdowns last year.
He won't be listed as a tight end, but we're hearing that Frank Reich is considering using Jacoby Brissett in a Taysom Hill type of way. Now, he's not as athletic as Hill. I don't know how exactly that would work, but the Colts are open to using Jacoby Brissett on the field, maybe even at the same time as Phillip Rivers.
Why not? Anything to make defenses prepare for something else, another wrinkle.
And by the way, a year ago, we talked about it on the show, but every team is looking for Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
Every team is looking for, they want that guy. They want to find him. The Chiefs thought they had a guy in John Lovett who has moved on. Somebody picked up Lovett. I can't remember. Was it the Packers? Something like that. But anyway, so know this. Behind the scenes, every single team is looking for that guy that can be Taysom Hill.
And Cole McDonald just got released for Trevor Siemian. So there's a guy who could be one of those guys. The Saints had to take Tommy Stevens. They already moved him to tight end in the 7th round. They traded back in the draft to get another Taysom Hill type. I guess Taysom Hill is now their quarterback next year. We'll see. So absolutely, I think that this is something we'll watch teams. It's just about preparation. And Indy, we can step back, Cease, and we don't talk about Indy in the same breath that we do, say, Kansas City, Baltimore, Dallas, these offenses. How do you defend that, right? But let's think about it. Phillip Rivers just put the restrictor plate. Is that right, Cease? Am I using the right term?
Yes. It's a restrictor plate or a governor.
Because governor. Rivers actually is still accurate as long as he's not pushing the ball downfield. But that's okay because I think Paris Campbell, who's healthy and generating buzz, he can be a good play on shorter passes to get his run after catch speed involved. T.Y. Hilton, we know what he can do. Michael Pittman, also on the fast track, starting. He can be more of a Vincent Jackson type outside, so it isn't so much about Rivers' accuracy, about it is ball placement in this one, and not, again, pushing the ball downfield. You have Jack Doyle. You have Nyheim Hines. And you also have this guy, Jonathan Taylor, who we've already talked about, stepping on your face. Now, the next thing you know, Brissett is out there. Well, you've already been stressed out trying to account for all of these. Good offensive line, their defense. This is an exciting Colts team to watch this year, and anything to keep defenses guessing even more will be helpful.
Jeremy says in the chat room, I love you guys.
We love you too, Jeremy.
Jeremy, appreciate that. And Daniel, did I mispronounce Brida?
It's Brita, Cease. You're thinking of Orida. It's tater tots, frozen, the microwave tater tot. Remember when microwave French fries came out? That was a big deal.
That was a big deal. We're old. That's how. Remember when microwaves came out? That was awesome.
Right. Microwave cookbooks. That was a thing.
All right. That's a wrap for today's little mini show that we're doing here. Just keeping you up to date on Training Camp Bloom. You've got the Audible live tonight.
Yeah. Dr. Gene, Matt Waldman. Chris Harris on the couch. We're going to come at you with more couch episodes as we do usually leading up to the season. We'll be back next week with some news and notes. And see, I'm still lighting my prayer candle that y'all do Thursday Night Football. Do Thursday Night Football. Which one am I praying for?
A little birdie told me that I might be available for Thursday Night podcasts.
Oh, so, thank you.
Yeah. So there we go. Carl brings up, remember recording your fantasy stats by hand. Yeah, I became commissioner of my league in the 90s because I worked at a gas station and we get the newspaper first. So, 5:30 in the morning, cut open those newspaper bundles and then go through USA Today and look at the fantasy stats. Yep, that was a thing.
Remember CNN Headline Sports? That was the only way we could keep up with our fantasy teams in real time. Vanneral Wright, CNN Headline Sports. Jerome Jaranovich. Yeah.
You haven't drafted a fantasy team with him, have you?
Nope, just Nick Bakay.
Okay, just Nick Bakay. All right. That is a wrap. Everyone out there, thank you very much. Do all the YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe, all those things to share the channel. And hey, if you love the show, I've always wanted to support the show. How do I support you guys? Go to footballguys.com. Check us out. Sign up for our free daily newsletter. It's written mostly by Sigmund, me, Joe Bryant. So check out our free daily newsletter and then check out a subscription for footballguys.com. It's very affordable. And if you can, that's the best way to support the show. We certainly appreciate you guys for doing that. Your love and energy drive us. We love talking about football. We dig the fact that so many of you enjoyed. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We are the Audible. Everyone out there, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.